Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Phyllis Italiano. I am the hostess of the Democratic View, and with me today I have a young, and I do mean young, man who is going to talk to us about a very important issue that is happening to, I would say most of America right now. And his name is Hendel Leiva, and he's going to tell us all about where he is from and what he does. Tell us the name of your organization.
I work for an immigrant rights organization named Long Island Wins, and it works to promote fair and comprehensive immigration solutions that benefit all Long Islanders.
And you are known as, believe it or not, a community organizer. So we know of somebody who began that way.
Right.
But you're not political, yes, you said.
Not political.
So tell us a little bit about who you are.
So I like to describe myself as immigrant heritage made in America. And in order to understand where I come from, we have to go back and understand where my parents have come from and their journey. So my mother is an Ecuadorian immigrant. She had a relatively easy way to get here. She just took a plane over and settled in New York. But my father is an immigrant from Guatemala. And it's funny because I asked him not too long ago, Dad, how many trips did you make between Guatemala and the United States? And was it 3, 4? And he said, no, I made 10 journeys. And I said to myself, wow, that's an incredible amount of journeys. And the journeys he took are relatively similar to the journeys that Central Americans take to the U.S. today. Now,
What do you mean by 10 trips?
10 journeys back and forth from the United States to Guatemala.
And why didn't he stay the first time?
Because it was relatively easy to move between Guatemala and the United States.
Oh, in those days?
In those days,
Aha.
right.
And those days were what, the 50s?
I'd say more of the 70s.
70s?
The 70s. And what I think is interesting about his journeys is that he's lived all over. He's lived in Iowa, Illinois, Atlanta, Texas, California. But who were the people here at the time that were helping him out, giving him employment and opportunities to make a future for himself? It was the native-born population of the United States. And those were the people that helped my father eventually settle in New York, where I was born, and we moved out to Brentwood, New York, my hometown.
So let me stop for a minute now. So your father was, when you say native, the other natives here, you mean they were Guatemalan descent and they were here and they helped him?
No, when I mean native-born, I mean...
You mean American?
American.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So there were many Americans who sort of gave him a hand along the way.
Exactly, right.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Now, more about myself, or...
Well, I also wanted to just mention that, of course, naturally, I too have, not my parents, but my grandparents were all, of course, immigrants.
Right.
So I think most Americans, unless you're an Indian or an American, Native American as we call, we all came from somewhere else.
Right.
So this is not such an unusual thing to come from. But he did have the access to going back and forth.
Back then, yes.
At that time. Okay, so now you're born in New York.
Right.
And then go to Brentwood.
Yes.
Which is on the South Shore, not far from the Fire Island boat that I took in Bayshore.
Right.
And you went to school there?
Yes. Now, just to backtrack a little bit about what I actually do.
No, let's backtrack
Okay.
a minute for where did you go to school?
Okay, sure. So I went to school in Brentwood, and I went to kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, and high school. And it wasn't, the demographics of Brentwood have always been the majorities of Salvadorians. And, growing up there, I had the typical American experience. In high school, I was bullied a lot. And, being bullied in high school gave me a passion to always want to help others, and really sparked my love for activism and working for the greater good.
So you're saying that as an Ecuadorian in a neighborhood of many Salvadorians, meaning they came from El Salvador.
Right.
Okay, that they would then turn around and bully you.
Right. But it was your typical high school experience that can be found in any high school here in the United States.
Yes, I know. My own children went to a high school up in Bedford, New York, but they were artists.
Right.
And they had, and their school was like the artists and nerds and the jocks.
Right.
So I mean, it seems as though high schools tend to have this kind of almost a segregation.
Exactly.
Gee, that's something we ought to work on. I was never in
Right.
high school. In elementary school, you don't have that.
No, it's always when you get to middle school and the high school. Right.
So where did you go to college?
Now, once I graduated high school, I went to the University at Albany, where it's mostly Caucasian. And I didn't have a hard time fitting in there, but same thing as the concept of the high school. People segregated into cliques, but it was more by race now. Before it was, the jocks, nerds, the band geeks, but in college it was more about races separating. So that's the first time that I really saw that kind of divide.
Aha. And what did you major in?
I majored in English.
In English?
In English.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Were you planning to be an English teacher?
I've always just had a love for reading and writing.
Ah.
That's always been my passion. And, just to fast forward a little bit, when I went to graduate school at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, where I got my master's in public administration, because I figured my love for English combined with my love for activism is a pathway to social change. And that's why I majored in, I got my master's in public administration.
What was there any one incident that made you be someone who wanted to change society and seek social justice? Was there any one particular thing that happened, or was it just something that sort of evolved over a period of time, many little incidents?
Well, like I said, the bullying led, for myself to have a love for activism. However, when I was about 20, I had a summer job at Huntington Station working for the United States Postal Service. And on my very first day, I drove the postal truck out of the facility, down the road in Huntington. And right in that divide of Huntington Station, I saw a line of Central American men just standing there, and a line of Americans standing on the opposite side of the sidewalk. And nothing came to mind. I had never been exposed to immigration conflicts. And I thought the American men were just being patriotic, standing there with their flags. But as I drove closer, I saw signs that said, "Get out of our country, you don't belong here, we don't want you here." And, driving by, I thought to myself, something's not right here, something is going on. And it was just a powerful moment that just never left my mind. And then when I got home, I began researching and understanding the conflicts regarding immigration that were happening here on Long Island. So I guess you could say that's one of those moments.
Yes, there always are those moments in life. I mean, I know what my moment was that made me seek social justice as well,
Right.
and made me the kind of person I am, the screaming liberal.
Okay.
I like to call myself, but for me, it was the end of World War II when I saw the skeletons with skin all over them come walking out of the newsreel towards me as they opened up the concentration camps.
Oh, wow.
And that, to me, was my defining moment. and I was about, I was, young at that time, but over time, I was always interested in what made people do those kinds of things to other
Right.
people. How do you do that to somebody else? I know you and I, when we talked on the phone, we talked about the incident that happened in Patchogue. Would you
Right.
tell us about that?
Sure. So very simply, there was an Ecuadorian immigrant walking in Patchogue one night, and 7 teens assaulted him, and one of them fatally stabbed him when he tried to fight back. Now that's a very simple overview of what happened. Now, in taking into context the surrounding factors, there was anti-immigrant rhetoric by the former county executive here on Long Island that, felt that, well, yeah, I mean, I guess, right. So there was that rhetoric that, people say that the teens felt empowered, that they could assault immigrants without any repercussions. Then there's this sport that was happening in Patchogue called beaner hopping, where the kids were actively at night going out to hunt immigrants.
God.
Then there was the school that didn't address bullying properly within their system. So there are about 8 factors that all go into that one murder that happened in Patchogue. And, it happened in 2008. And through the years, Patchogue has been left with this legacy of intolerance and hate.
Yeah.
And also, the fear that people feel of Patchogue, I know very well, because on one of my first days at my job, I told my boss, I'm not going into Patchogue because of my skin color, the way I look. If I go into that town, I'm not coming back out. And people, when I say this to people of Patchogue, they feel a little offended because, they know that there's this legacy of intolerance, hate that, it might have been there, but the community has tried to move forward. But there's this stigma that's still attached to the community.
So what exactly do you do? How do you work at this? In what ways?
Okay. So there is this national movement called Welcoming America that their focus is to promote mutual respect and cooperation between the foreign-born and native-born Americans. And their philosophy is that in order for the immigrant population to thrive and contribute and to give back to the United States, it is critical to provide receptive communities. It's like, you have a seed and you have to take care of that seed in order to receive like the greenery and the benefits. So what I do is I try to organize people here on Long Island around that concept of creating receptive communities, especially in areas where it's needed, like Patchogue, like a place called Farmingville. These places that need to come together in order to move their communities forward.
So what exactly now, I understand the concept,
Right.
but give me the steps in which, what do you do? Do you have, for instance, forums where people come and talk and present things?
Now, there are several methods. You could have dialogues, forums, potluck dinners, but the main tool that we have been using are stories. And again, it's a very simple concept. So what we do is we work with an organization called Her Story Writers Workshop. And what they do is they try to create social change through the power of stories. And they have an anthology of immigrant stories, of immigrants right here on Long Island. And what you do with the stories is you bring them into different venues, such as universities, high schools, and really any venue that gives us an opening to come in and talk. And you form a circle and you just read the story. And sometimes we have the author there, which makes the stories even more powerful. And what we do is we try to invoke empathy. We try to reach the heart. We try to reach people at their core to realize that immigration is not only based on data and numbers, that there are people behind the data and numbers. And everybody has their own story, and everybody has their own journey and dream. And if you have the person in front of you, you're not going to think about the data. You're not going to think about the numbers that is out, that is anywhere else. You focus on the moment and you focus on that person. And through the power of story is one of the main tools that we're using to reach people.
As a matter of fact, I also write, and I always look in our local newspaper for whatever classes are going on in writing, because by taking classes, it forces you to keep writing. And I have seen her story advertised in the paper, not advertised, but just listed in the paper, and it's at the Southampton Cultural Center. And I often thought, well, maybe I should go to that, but I don't know that I would particularly fit in, because I certainly don't have, stories of immigrant type,
But even so, the interesting about her story is that even if you don't necessarily believe that you have a moment, just like that moment that you described, that moment that touched you, that story can be put on paper. That story can be used for social justice. So it's not that you necessarily have to, already have a certain kind of concept. You can just go and put down your story on paper, and they will help you write out your story and use it in the way that you see fit.
Recently in East Hampton High School, we had an incident of a young man, Latino man, who committed suicide.
Really?
Well, he was, I believe he was gay, and he was bullied because of that, and then committed suicide based upon the experiences that he had, and I'm sure he must have had all kinds of trauma and about that. And they started to form groups in that high school to sort of work. And I understand from a young man that I work with on the Democratic website that the administration has really tried very hard to work with the students so that there will be less of that kind of thing. And as a school administrator, I would say that is where it has to begin, is with the administration, has to be cognizant of what is going on in the school and be willing to work with the groups to get the groups to have a dialogue together.
And and that actually leads me into the work that I'm currently doing in Patchogue right now.
You are in Patchogue.
I am in Patchogue.
Oh.
And the beauty of Welcoming Long Island or the Welcoming America movement is that it's not political. We don't go in and tell people what they should believe about immigration or immigration reform. We are just here to help build communities regardless of status, regardless of where you came from. We're going to help you build a community. That is what allowed the faculty and the administration at Patchogue High School to accept me to come in, because it's not political. We're just there to do community building. And right now there's about, I want to say 14 teachers that are in on this project, are in on bringing these stories to the kids, and just helping address bullying and intolerance or racism inside the school through this initiative. And it's important because prior to this, there have been efforts to try to change things within the high school or the Patchogue community, but there's never been such an innovative project as this that's not political. It's simply going in and community building at its most basic.
We also had on our show Anita
Halas.
Halas.
Yes.
Halas, yes, who was talking about the DREAM Act for New York State. Hopefully it will, I think it has passed the Senate, and now they're waiting for the House to pass, or it's passed the House, they're waiting for the Senate, one or the other. One of the other legislative bodies that move at a snail's pace. And I think those kinds of things are very important, because I have a woman who works for me sometimes who has children, and those children are going to go to college.
Right.
And, she has to find a way to get these children into schools. Now, when I was a single parent and had young children going to college, I could take advantage of TAP,
Right.
Tuition Assistance Program.
Exactly.
And she's not quite a citizen yet. She's on the path.
Okay.
But she is, looking to find ways to finance her children. Here's the way I feel about it. Maybe I'm wrong. I feel when people want to work and they want to contribute and they're doing the right thing, then I say, good for you.
Right.
Let's embrace these people and let's help them to build lives here. After all, that's what happened to my family. It happened to all of the families that are here.
Right.
All of the people who are here at some point, there are people who have obviously have been here for, very long times.
Right.
Hundreds of years. As a matter of fact, my children can say that they're, on their side, they have an Indian fighter who settled West Virginia in the Ohio River Valley.
Okay.
But, but there's still, we all need to accept everybody else and to allow them to be contributing members of society.
Right.
And that's where we have to go. And so what are your goals now for you as well as for your group?
My goal, and this is more of a personal goal and something that I will use Welcoming Long Island for, is I want, I spoke about how afraid I was to go into Patchogue. But once I got into the community, it's a good community with good people. I had all these thoughts and stigmas of the community. I love Main Street in Patchogue. I love the library. It's just, I feel welcome in the community. The problem is that the rest of the nation still sees Patchogue a certain way. And now I'm starting to have pride in where I work. I have pride in working in Patchogue now, working with the administration. What my goal is to finally change the image of Patchogue, to finally help shift that. And how do we do it? Through rebranding the community, through welcoming, making it a welcoming community. And in that way, the community can slowly start to let go of the stigma that it projects to the rest of the nation. And the rest of the nation can see it as a town and a community and people that has progressed from the incident that happened in 2008. And that is my main goal for Welcoming Long Island for the next year coming.
And what's the main goal for you as a person? You're 24 years old, a lot of years ahead of you.
Well, I'm on TV.
What?
Let's see. For myself,
Are you going to write his story?
eventually, right? For myself, honestly, I'm really accomplishing a lot right now for myself, from my personal goals. Like, I am living a dream right now. However, professionally, one day I do hope to work in the international sector, helping to address humanitarian needs back in Ecuador and Guatemala, where, some of my family is still affected by humanitarian issues. I hope to one day work my way to that.
Aha.
Yes.
And we were speaking before the show that Ecuador is actually in much better shape as a nation, much more prosperous and settled, and doing very well as compared to some of the other nations of South America.
Right.
And I don't know about Guatemala, though.
Guatemala.
I do know this about Guatemala. And Guatemala and Costa Rica also, they've done a lot on preserving their rainforest.
Yes.
And that's wonderful, because we need rainforest.
Right, but the thing about Guatemala, and it's very similar to El Salvador, is that they had about a 20-year civil war. And in that, there were tons of human rights abuses towards the indigenous, and just really left both countries in ruin. And both nations haven't been able to become as prosperous because of that, because of government corruption, a weak democratic system, weak judicial system, and most of the people of both countries still continue to suffer.
I wonder how many people out there know how successful Brazil is these days.
Yeah.
I mean, Brazil is one of the most successful nations in the world right now. Of course, it's very large and has enormous minerals and all of that. I have been to Brazil, beautiful country, I might add.
I bet it is.
All right, well, that's very wonderful. We certainly hope that you will continue on with your work. We're looking forward to this kind of thing. We need more people like you. My big question always is how come you're not in Wall Street making a lot of money, and instead you're willing to, devote your life to ideas? And that's what you're really doing. You're devoting your life to ideas.
Because that, to me, is where the richness is. And that's all that matters.
What a good answer. I have to remember that one. That's a real, so the riches are with devoting your life to ideas and justice for all.
Right, and that's the most fulfilling of all. No amount of money can replace that.
Oh dear, you are an idealist. Don't lose it.
I won't.
Don't lose it. Don't become a cynic. There's too many cynics in this world. We need more idealists.
Continue trying.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Wonderful. You did a wonderful job. Very interesting.